Murfreesboro for a short furlough. The date is October the 13th, 1862, exactly 150 years ago. The visiting Confederate officer will be reenacted by Dennis Pipkin, representing his great-grandfather, Isaac Pipkin. Captain Isaac Pipkin has been asked to make a speech about his war experiences to a local group of Murfreesboro ladies and gentlemen before starting back to his unit. He will address you folks as if this is really 1862, and during this session cannot answer modern day questions or questions about the later war years after 1862. Of course, at any other time during our living history, he and the other reenactors will be available to answer any and all questions you have. And so without further ado, let's welcome Captain Isaac Pipkin.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Captain Isaac Pipkin, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here with you. And I want to thank all of you for the opportunity to have this nice afternoon tea with the ladies of and gentlemen of the town before I go on to my unit. I hope you'll excuse my few notes here. Before I go on, I'd like to introduce my lovely fiancée, Miss Georgia Montgomery, standing there. I'm sure that you all know her. As you know, I must depart this area very soon. But before I go, it is very nice to have this time with my friends. I want to recognize all the men in my command. There are some of my unit here in Murfreesboro. They're on their way with me in the first leg of our journey to join our regiment. Especially I'd like to introduce my right-hand man, Sergeant James T. Jones. Sergeant Jones is from Hereford County, and I think you all know him. He is a very fine soldier, a finer soldier I could not ask for. I could not run the company without him. Well, first, before telling you about my experiences, I'd like to tell you what draws me back to Murfreesboro. And it's not only the family that I have here, not only my fiancée, but also just the knowledge of Murfreesboro's warm environment, their respect for learning and scholarship, the integrity of their citizens. All of this draws me back to Murfreesboro. This deep respect for learning that Murfreesboro has in the arts and sciences can not only prepare us for this world that we live in, to act as adults in it, but also help to prepare us for the world beyond. And also, I need to tell you what's pulling me away. And what I'm journeying to is my regiment, the 31st Infantry Regiment, commanded by Colonel John V. Jordan. Colonel Jordan is originally from Craven County, and he, the first part of the war, was an aide to Governor Ellis, who is now deceased. I was recently promoted, and I now have the honor to command Company G of the 31st Infantry. My company has about 100 men. So you might say I'm like the centurion in the Bible. You remember your Latin from school here, centurion being the word for 100. And of course the centurions were Roman soldiers in Bible times. We in the 31st Regiment have already seen combat. And we are ready to go forward again. You recall that only last year, on May 20th, 1861, North Carolina came to the reluctant decision to secede from the Union. That left us little choice but to repel invaders. You recall the flurry of volunteers for the new regiments being assembled here in this section of North Carolina as well as across the state. Being a little older than the average recruit at 26 years of age, I decided to take a little time to decide exactly what to do. I don't have the benefit of a West Point graduation nor a Naval Academy, which many of our top-ranking officers do in the Confederacy. I also knew that as yet our Confederate Navy was very small. And also I knew of the importance of the land forces in our defense, and particularly of the infantry. We cannot win any battles without infantry and the private soldier with all those muskets. That is essential. We must have that. We cannot do it without privates, and we cannot do it without muskets. All the other services within the Army are very important too. There's the artillery, striking at long distance. There's the cavalry, which is the eyes and ears of the generals. And of course, the engineers who do important construction work, forts and other things. And the important quartermasters. I felt it was my duty to join, so I joined joined the 31st. We were organized by last September 18th, 1861. A period of training followed, and I was approved as the company's first lieutenant, the second in command, Company G. Our first assignment was to go to Roanoke Island to defend the island against a certainty of invasion. As you know, Hatteras Island first fell to the Yankees, and we knew Roanoke Island was next. Now, why is Roanoke Island important? Roanoke controls the entryway through the Albemarle Sound, the Roanoke River, to the extremely vital railroad bridge at Weldon. Much of the supplies nowadays come from the Wilmington and Weldon Railroad through Weldon up to supply the soldiers in Virginia. And as you know, the soldiers in Virginia, the armies there, are very close to Washington, D.C., and the North is very anxious to prevent anything happening to Washington, D.C. So that's where a lot of their force is concentrated. When we got to Roanoke Island, we first set up some forts. On the western side of the island, starting about the midway point, we constructed 3 forts from south to north. The forts Barstow, Blanchard, and Huger. These were equipped with 32-pounder guns. And as a first lieutenant, I was given command of Fort Blanchard. Well, last February, the northern troops landed, sure enough, on Roanoke Island. They landed at Ashby's Point, Ashby's Landing, which is about midway down the island. So they had effectively sidestepped our forts, which had their guns aimed at the most likely point of entry. In addition, the back of our forts were protected with pretty deep bogs and thick briars. So we didn't expect the northern troops to come that way. Our guns were pointed toward the west, toward the shore. As I say, and on February the 7th, they did land. They advanced from Ashby's Point around trying to flank us on the rear of the forts. After some fighting, they did do so. And we were withdrawn to the north of the island. And there, Colonel Shaw, who was in command of the entire land forces on Roanoke Island, decided not to take any more bloodshed and did surrender to General Burnside's officers. So we were all captured at that time. They were treated us well and with respect. The enlisted men were given one area to go to and asked to stay there and guard it. The officers went on board one of the transports in the harbor, a Union transport, and there Colonel Shaw and Colonel Jordan wrote up the reports of the battle for the North Carolina legislature as well as their commanders. General Burnside allowed them to do that, and I assisted. Ladies and gentlemen, you often hear in the newspapers and read in the newspapers about the valor of our soldiers in battle and their determination to win, and all that's true. I know, I've served with them. But I'm also here not only to tell you how things should be, to give you a hint of how they are. And ladies and gentlemen, it's difficult to transfer the experience of battle to a new recruit coming into our regiment. It just simply cannot be done. So I don't hope to transfer that knowledge to you today. I do say that I sincerely hope, having seen it, that you never have to personally be involved in battle. Well, before we go on, I wanted to mention a few things about the future. I want to ask all of you citizens to look forward with confidence to the future victory and to peace, the coming peace. When our nations are again friends, we can get to work solving our own problems. And so I ask you to look forward to that. We know we have many advantages here in eastern North Carolina. We also have some challenges, and we need to work on those. For instance, we need to work on transportation, perhaps bringing a railroad to Murfreesboro. We need to work on improving conditions for agriculture and business, and as well as ensuring that conditions for institutions of learning and religion are allowed to flourish. And last but not least, we need to work on those great issues that have been brought to our attention. How best to set up a society that is best for all the people. And who better to do that than you folks who live those problems every day? Well, I sense we're about at a time to assemble for the trip to the river landing, where we'll board our vessel for the next journey, the next stage of our journey. And we go forth promising to protect you. I regret, ladies and gentlemen, that we were not able to help defend Murfreesboro when you folks were invaded by the Yankees. We were prisoners at the time and will help us to do so. We shall do our best. I shall, and I know my men shall. I want to close by saying to you that I will return to Murfreesboro. There's no question, I will be back. No circumstance will keep me away. If God permits me to survive the war alive, I shall come back and take my place among you. If I am wounded, I will be back. If I am killed, my body shall rest here in my beloved Hertford soil. And if I am killed and my body cannot be found, then I will still be back. In that case, look for me in the spring breezes and the spring flowers. I thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Now I must go. I hear a drum beat in the distance. Sergeant Jones and I must get our troops together. But first we have time for a few questions, if you like.